With the winter meetings quickly approaching, the offseason is hopefully gonna get kicked into overdrive. I say hopefully because it's been really slow thus far, other than the Mariners trading Eugenio Suarez.
I love you, and I miss you.
So what are the Mariners gonna do at the winter meetings possibly to go out and replace Eugenio? Who the hell knows? But Jeff Passan came out and did have a little bit to say on the idea, thinking about, hey, what could the Mariners do when it comes to replacing the at-bats that Geno gave the Mariners, and also the positional versatility that could come along with now the hole at second base, the hole at third base. Who could fill that spot for the Mariners? We've talked a lot about Yandy Diaz. We've talked a lot about other guys around baseball playing second base, like Jonathan India and Gleyber Torres. But Passan mentioned a new player that I hadn't even thought about, and that is Isaac Paredes. Now, this all came from this article on ESPN Plus that he had posted, where he said, at ESPN Plus, I look at 10 fascinating teams this winter, some free agent buyers, others more involved in the trade market, and all bound to be busy as transaction season kicks into gear, with the winter meeting starting 1 week from today. This was posted on Monday, the 27th. And while Passan didn't specifically list the Mariners as one of his fascinating teams, he does list them in a trade with the Rays. Passan mentions that the Tampa Bay Rays always love to cut costs. They project to have nearly $120 million on their opening day roster, $35 million more than they've ever carried into opening day. That's why Tyler Glass now is being thrown around. He's due $25 million this season. And that's why Isaac Paredes could find himself dealt as well, even though he's in only his first of 4 arbitration seasons. Passan mentions that Tampa Bay has the same first world problem as the Baltimore Orioles and Cincinnati. They have Paredes, Yandy Diaz, Brandon Lau, Junior Caminero, Curtis Mead, Harold Ramirez, Taylor Walls, Oselvis Bazabe, and Jonathan Aranda, all hungry for infield and designated hitter at bats. The Rays could find a partner in a pitching-rich team that they just traded its third baseman, and with whom they have a long history of making trades. The perfect transaction in Passan's eyes, trade third baseman Isaac Paredes to Seattle. Now, is this a trade rumor per se? Not necessarily, but does it make sense? Yeah, I think it makes sense for the Mariners to be looking at trading one of their starting pitchers to the Rays for one of their infielders. Again, we've talked about Yandy Diaz. We've talked about even Jonathan Aranda during the, middle of this last season. With Curtis Mead and Junior Caminero now coming up as well, that infield's getting even more crowded than it already was. The Rays are really, really good at creating very decent infielders, whether that be defensively, but mainly offensively. Look at Yandy Diaz, what he's turned into. Look at what we've seen out of Aranda already. Look at, they've produced Curtis Mead. They had Kyle Manzardo, who they were going to have as well over there. The Rays are good at this, guys. They're also really good at producing starting pitching. The Rays are just a very good but very cheap baseball team. You think the Mariners are cheap? Go look at the Rays. Go look at all the guys they've traded off throughout their history because they didn't want to pay him. Think about like Chris Archer coming out of his prime, David Price, etc., etc. It's always the pitchers. They'll probably trade Tyler Glass now. I cannot imagine them paying him $25 million. I just can't. So they're going to want to replace that guy with someone that's a little bit cheaper. Enter Bryce Miller or Brian Wu, and let's look at Isaac Paredes and see how he fits the Mariners in 2024. Paredes is a third baseman, second baseman, and first baseman. He bats right, throws right. He'll be entering his age 25 season in 2024, and he had a 4.2 B WAR in 2023. The Mariners would also have Isaac Paredes through 2027. He wouldn't be a free agent until the following season in 2028. In 2023, Isaac Paredes posted a 250, 352, 488 slash line with a 131 OPS plus. He slugged 31 home runs with 98 RBI. He walked 58 times and struck out only 104 times. And this has been pretty prevalent throughout his career. In 311 career games, he only struck out 206 times compared to 120 walks. 2023 was by far the highest average that Paredes has had at 250. And throughout his career, he had a 205 in 2022 and 111 games. Otherwise, very minimal games. 23 in 2021 and 34 in 2020, both with the Tigers. And all of a sudden, you can see the Rays work their little devil magic here because he gets to the Rays, he plays in 111 and 143 games and becomes a above league average hitter. Hell, he was MVP 18 in 2023. Paredes is running an 18% strikeout percentage, which is well below the average for the MLB, and also a 10.5% walk percentage, which is way above the MLB average for that. Listen, I know I sound funny. I'm still sick. All right, leave me alone. Paredes is very similar, in my opinion, to that of Yandy Diaz. His whiff percentage is in the 88th percentile, his K percentage in the 74th percentile, and his walk percentage in the 72nd percentile, although Yandy Diaz finds more success. Yandy Diaz is running a batting average north of 300, and as you can see, Isaac Paredes pulls the ball a lot. In 2023, nearly all of his hits were to the pull side of the field, and in 2022, he did spread them out a little bit more. You can also see that his peripheral numbers and his chase whiff rate and his K percentage and his walk percentage were actually better in 2022, but nonetheless, he was still very mediocre in terms of his StatCast averages, but the numbers don't lie. In 2023, Paredes didn't run too much of a crazy platoon. He definitely has more power versus right-handed pitching, where he hit 27 home runs, albeit in 250 more at-bats. But he did hit a little bit better for average versus left-handed pitchers, where he hit 259, 368, 405, compared to 247, 347, 513. In 2023, Paredes played 25 games at first base, 14 at second, and 116 at third base. He mainly played third in 2023, although 2022 it was a little bit more spread out with 50 games at third, 43 at second, and 29 at first base. So you can move him everywhere around the infield. You're not going to put him at shortstop. I guess you could for a game like the Rays have been. But he has that age-old thing that I'm looking for. He can give Ty France a day off at first base. He could take over at third base. Yes, sir. That's the guy I need. Paredes' defense is nothing to write home about, but it's not going to kill you over there at third base either. As you can see, he had a, well, 0 in outs above average. His arm strength was about 84.6, so, you know, nothing special. But the fact of the matter is, Paredes gets results, and he's done it for 2 years in a row now, and he's only gotten better. He's gotten better every year of his career, now hitting 250 in 2023 with a 130 plus OPS plus. This guy hit 31 home runs in 2023, and he doesn't strike out that much. It's hard to argue with the results we saw out of Isaac Paredes. Does it fit in T-Mobile Park as a right-handed hitter who has a lot of pull side power? I'm not completely sold on that. And am I willing to give up Bryce Miller or Brian Wu for him? I don't know. I truly don't know if I'm willing to give them up for 4 years of arbitration controlled, albeit, of Isaac Paredes. Paredes is expected by Spot Rack to make about $4.1 million, so, you know, the same as Luis Urias. And he has 3 more years of arbitration because he was a Super 2 player. So that means the Mariners would have him through 2027, his age 28 season, and obviously we'd probably see that salary of arbitration move up a little bit. I would expect him to be getting paid, if he continues on this track, I would not be shocked to see him getting paid 20 plus million in 2027, if not even more than that based on his production recently. For the Mariners, they still have Bryce Miller, Brian Wu under pre-arbitration numbers for a few more years. Could you go out and get somebody a little more of a sure thing than Isaac Paredes? Yes, I'm sure you could. But with that being said, getting Isaac Paredes is also a high-risk, high-reward kind of guy. His StatCast numbers don't wow anybody, but the results are irrefutable. So, Brian Wu for Isaac Paredes straight up, that's my trade package. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree with that package. So we fixed the Mariners' problem at third base here with this trade for Isaac Paredes. But is there a guy out there on the White Sox that can make sense for the Mariners at designated hitter? We have that video linked on the screen now. Go ahead and watch that one next. I appreciate you guys watching this one, and go Mariners.